You're live.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Today is a meeting of the Downtown Parking Advisory Committee. It's been the first one in a while. I'm gonna have everyone introduce themselves around the table before we get started. So I'll have Ann start off.
Yeah, I'm Ann Krieg. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development for the city.
Park Lemons, PCI Municipal Services, we operate department for downtown.
I'm Colette, planning officer for the city.
Nikita Hernandez Smith, Economic Development Officer for the city.
Kelsey Hobbs, professor at UMaine.
Awesome.
And also on Zoom, you have.
Hi, I'm Sarah Luciano, regular human.
I guess the first thing we should talk about is the election of officers. And I guess the first thing I should ask to the group here is, does anyone have any interest in being the vice chair of this committee? I will volunteer someone if need be.
I would like to state for the record, I have been chair and I would like to no longer be chair or vice chair. I have other chairing duties that are quite time consuming.
If no one feels comfortable with that, like it can just be a placeholder for now until we have someone who wants to take on that mantle later. Like I just want to make sure that for future meetings that we have someone that's able to take charge in case I'm not able to attend or something like that. But did you have any interest or?
Sure, put me on it. Why not?
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. We're just talking about the election of officers.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so just for the record, Hannah, you said that you'd be willing to serve vice. Oh, Kelsey, I'm so sorry. You said that you'd be willing to vice chair. Okay, and would you mind stating your name for the record, ma'am?
I'm Ann Ross.
Thank you. Okay, do we need to do anything else for the election of the officers at this point?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll have you take over the next item for annual training, then we can get started with the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in your packet, we put in the part of the city's code that addresses, the work of this committee. It is an advisory committee, which means your actions are recommendations to the city council. Focused really on that area. We put in your packet a map of the area of a sort of jurisdictional area, if you will, of the downtown parking management area. So that's one of the reasons why we have Park here, who manages our work with a contractor to do to manage all of the parking downtown. So any actions that you make are recommendations that go to either infrastructure, sometimes it might be Business and Economic Development Committee, or it might be to the full council, so. Yeah. And then next on the agenda, is that okay?
Yeah, yes.
Right to the City Hall parking proposal.
Sure. All right, so I mean, I have my own notes here, but I'll let you take the reins, Courtney.
Courtney O'Donnell, I'm the assistant city manager, currently serving as interim, but our new city manager will actually be starting on Monday, so it's very exciting. So what I had put together was just a proposal for consideration around parking at City Hall. As you all know, that building is undergoing renovations, and the parking configuration up next to the building has been long-standing. And I know that in the years that I was over there, there was often a lot of constraints in terms of both accommodations for employees, but also the members of the public to actually be able to easily get in and out of that building, given all the stairs and the slopes and things. So with us returning to that building later this summer, it provided an opportunity for us to kind of reevaluate the parking situation and what we might do to create more accessibility. And so with that said, what I have put in, or put together was a proposal that's kind of two-part. The first is, or what we are proposing is to actually move some of the staff slots, over on the upper part of the Center Street Hill as indicated in the map that is on, that was included in your packets. I'm just gonna share, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Share my screen real quick so that folks can see what I'm referencing. So this right here is those staff parking. There's about a dozen slots there, that were given to department heads. I'd like to remove about half of them from, over here and put them up on, toward the top of Center Street Hill as indicated by the red. The green would remain the same, which I believe is 2-hour public parking. And then it's kind of separate from that request is, suggestion or recommendation to maybe evaluate these 5 slots here indicated by blue. Right now, I believe that those are 90-minute slots. And so it was just an idea to perhaps make those city hall specific, because right now there are 2 30-minute spots over here. But otherwise, if you park anywhere along the street, you either have to walk up these stairs or these stairs. There is a pathway here, but it's pretty steep for folks that are seeking the ramp. So if you, you know, you park anywhere around here, you'd actually have to walk all the way up and around in order to access the ramp. And we thought that these slots here might make that easier on folks coming to visit. This was brought up in council workshop, just as a heads up to the counselors. And a counselor did suggest that perhaps instead of making that city hall specific parking, to instead reduce the time from the 90 minutes to the 30, regardless of where you're going. I'll say personally, I have no strong preference on that. It was just a suggestion to evaluate as the parking for City Hall as a whole to increase the accessibility for residents and also for folks that are attending meetings and things of that nature. And that would only be during business hours was the recommendation for the City Hall parking only suggestion. So that's kind of the gist, and I'll turn it back over to the committee chair.
Sure. Just give my own personal annotations on this, but please feel free to give your input. So this is I did like the 30-minute limitation for those spaces as opposed to making them exclusive for City Hall business as well, one of the issues, especially just because this isn't zone 1, which is a later topic, but this is a high demand area that we are going to need to talk about it later on in the meeting. And so especially because there's a bit of a data gap regarding no usage metrics for existing spaces. I personally would like to see before cementing anything to maybe do like a 6-month review, like a pilot to see just how it goes, especially as we're if this is something that we can facilitate in the summer, we can see how that does well or doesn't do well. Those are just my notes. I don't know if anyone else, I'll open up to the rest of the committee if anyone has any thoughts or yes.
I'll just from, so we do the parking enforcement too. So from parking enforcement, obviously we can't enforce City Hall only. There's no way to do that. So I'm just saying, I mean, whatever the committee wants to do there, but as far as an enforcement standard, there would be difficult, I mean, it'd be impossible really to say that, but we can enforce different time zones.
That's a valid point to bring up. Thank you for that input.
The question about the spots that are getting moved for the workers, so are those spots that you're moving out to the street, the ones that you're moving are now open for people to use?
Oh, yes.
Or-
Thank you. That's actually a very important point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the intent is instead of that being designated parking for staff, that be open to members of the public to create more spaces closer to the building with a shorter walk.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's great. I'm hesitant about the restricted for city use, or City Hall use ones, just because I feel like we have a struggle with finding parking downtown anyways, and so any restriction on how a spot can be used makes it more difficult for it to actually be used by someone, particularly that's trying to go anywhere downtown. And then the 30 minutes too, I think sometimes, depends on what line you get stuck in going to City Hall as to whether that's gonna be an issue for you or not. But I don't know. I understand the accessibility issue and wanting to make it easier for people to be able to come to City Hall, I
Can I
guess.
ask a question on Park too regarding that? If it becomes 30 minutes, is that really enforceable with the pattern of the parking enforcement? It's difficult,
Yeah, it's
right?
gonna be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it will be just a matter of the routing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have 30-minute zones throughout the city and it's just a matter of going all the way around and coming back and then doing it. So it would be random. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how we do enforcement is, it's not, we don't try to condition a pattern, we try to do it randomly.
Yeah, yeah.
Somewhat, so.
So please just remind me again, how many of these on Center Street are 30 minutes and then all of those behind will also be 30 minutes? The blue, I understand, is questionable.
Over here, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's 2 parking spaces here that are 30 minutes. And then what's noted in green, actually all the way up to here right now, I believe is 2-hour parking. And actually up here, I don't think that there is actually a time limit, at least there's no signage up there toward the top of the hill.
I think it's typically still 2 hours,
Yeah.
but it's not been, there's city staff up there or used to be.
I think, yeah, it's not designated up here, but certainly it's a lot further away if you are seeking, I think, to attend, buildings in downtown. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. As a business owner on this end of Harlow Street, I know where my clients park. They're here for an hour and then they go. Then the next
Yeah.
hour, 6 more come, 6
Mhm.
more, 6 more. And so there are times when the only place they can park is up on that Center Street. And so I just want, it's a hot area with the library and other businesses, also people trying to get into that. So I like that you're opening up. I do also question the 30 minutes. I'm not convinced that's long enough.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, just an idea, happy to, if an hour makes more sense or leaving it at 2, we're open to those suggestions.
Thoughts?
I personally like it as an hour, and I think it used to be an hour, and then a few years ago, there was kind of like a move to have it. Back when Councilor Graham was a counselor, private Councilor Graham, but to have it moved to 2 hours. But I do think it functioned better as a 1 hour spot.
Is that sort of the consensus right now? Like 30 minutes is just too short of a time? Okay,
Okay, yeah, I think it is.
okay. I think that's pretty much a consensus on the time limitation. What else do we need for feedback for council in order to be clear on this subject?
Yeah, I guess I'm looking for some sort of vote for a recommendation as to whether or not you support us being able to move the staff members over into those red spots. And the timing, if you will, for the blue spots.
Thoughts?
I'm happy with the move of the spots, the red and green spots. I think that's fine. Just from driving by there regularly, I think that's a good place. Like if you're gonna start restricting some spots, so that's an okay place to do it. The blue, I'm on the 1 hour at least side of things, and that would be my recommendation. But I can be swayed.
Okay, so we have one recommendation. Are there any other proposals or any other thoughts, or would anyone like to make a motion on Kelsey's recommendation?
I'm moved to accept.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
I don't think I'm.
Yeah, staff looks-
I can't do either of those things.
I think you're, advisor like we are, yeah. But I'll double check.
so we have a motion, we have a second. I mean, do we need to have a vote or is it unless it's doubted?
Yes, roll call actually, because Sarah's participating
Okay.
remotely.
Okay, so we'll need to have a roll call vote. Anne,
Yes.
Kelsey?
Yep.
Sarah?
Yes.
Who else is a voting member? Guess just me,
Yeah.
and I'll be a yes on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Excellent.
so. Think unless any other questions or comments or quarrels, quibbles, complaints on that, we can move on to item number 5, the parking study. So this is a study that was commissioned but by the city, and it analyzes downtown's parking supply demand. And well, and if you want to take the reins,
Yeah,
I'll let you
that's
know.
fine. When we were working on the village partnership project with the engineering division, and the village partnership project is basically a streetscape for downtown project. And the company that was doing it, Sewell, was doing a lot of parking, analysis and counting parking spots. So we said, well, while they're out there, why don't we, have them do a parking study, because we hadn't done one in a long time, and, let's take a look and see, what our build out situation is for downtown with, parking demand. So, so that's how it got started. It just kind of was an offshoot, if you will, of the downtown streetscape project. So we had them do that. They finished it in January, and we just haven't been able to convene the committee to take a look at it. I don't expect you, I mean, because it's a big study, there's a lot there, so I was hoping today just to kind of get it out there and take any initial questions that you have. And, we can continue to look at it and, get more specific comments from folks at your next meeting.
So the first thing I just wanted to bring up is zone 1 has a pretty massive deficit. It's like 1,141 demanded versus like the 400 supply that's there. So that's probably my biggest concern for learning from this study. And one of the things that I did notice with this is that the study assumes it's a static land use. So like something like seasonal tourism is not going to be accounted for. So that's something to also take in consideration for this study. That said, though, well, I don't want to steer the conversation. I have my own recommendations and ideas for combating parking issues. But look, I guess I'll open up to the committee if there's any comments or questions that anyone has. Yes.
So I guess my issue with the study, and I might be misunderstanding, is that we're assuming that all the spots can be used for all the reasons, like the private lots get counted the same as public. And so I think I'm confused when the study does, that there's a surplus. It ends up that like in total across these zones, we have a surplus of parking spaces, which as a downtown resident feels very incorrect. Like that doesn't feel correct. Just from my experience trying to park downtown, and being willing to walk far to park. So I think I'm a bit confused about whether the private spaces are available to public use only at certain times or not, because if they're not, then there really isn't a surplus of spaces at certain times during the day if you're only allowed to park in like a private lot after 5. Or for the public timed ones, like there's not a surplus from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. because that's a restricted parking time. So I think there's a little bit of like it feels like I was like, oh wow, we have a surplus of parking spaces, news to me. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, if you're not allowed to use those spots at some time, then they're really not available the majority of the time. So I think I'm just confused about that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we counted the private parking spaces because they do serve some of the square footage of whether it's office
right.
or apartment or,
Mhm.
whatever they're connected to.
Mhm.
So if we left them out, then you would have all of the square footage of a land use that looked like it didn't have parking assigned to it when
Yeah.
it did. So that does skew things a little bit.
Well, can I ask a follow-up to that then? Does that mean that the private lots, like, when you're counting the parking, for example, single family attached housing, like, do those two spaces automatically connect to two private spaces? Like, are they matched up accordingly? Cause if you're saying that, you know, they're zoned for this certain use and then the private things are kind of capturing that, then that would mean that we don't have an issue because they would have been matched up exactly to the type of parking that you need for that building. Like the number of parking spots is exactly the type of parking you're supposed to have for that building.
Right, I think, I don't, their analysis didn't get that surgical with, you know, tying private spaces to a specific square footage. It looks more at the build out of certain land uses and what their parking needs would be. And we
Okay.
don't have parking requirements in the downtown, so
Yeah.
from a city standpoint,
So
Yeah.
their analysis was not timed specific, like heavy times, but this is just the aggregate.
Yeah, it's
And
kind
that's
of like what's.
yes, the
what's
aggregate,
there.
right, right.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is fine, just.
So when the Downtown Bangor Partnership was looking at this issue of like parking in downtown and the
Mhm.
advocacy that we want to do around it, one of the top points for us was that we have an overbuild of private single-use parking and an underbuild of publicly accessible parking, and how do you either convert private single-use into multi-use shared parking or create more municipal parking, because you end up with giant empty lots at certain points in time that are, you know, the one right by City Hall, you know, like as we're having this conversation about City Hall and parking, I think is a prime example on the corner of,
Right,
you know, State and Park Street. Yeah, I guess it's on Park, right?
yeah,
You know, that's a prime example where 90% of the time, it's 90% empty.
right,
And it gets very little usage, but yet it's factored in as a solution to the parking situation, according to this report. So how can we get solutions? Cause when you have shared use parking, you can reduce the number of parking spots that you need to service each individual, the amount of square footage that you have. So taking that one lot as an example, if it were businesses using it, multiple businesses using it over the course of the day, and then residents using it at night, you wouldn't need as many individual parking spots. But if the residential building needs its own parking spots and the business needs its own parking spots, now you've got twice as many parking spots as you need, which is
Mhm,
actually an inhibitor to growth,
mhm.
surface parking in general. So is there a way that we can translate this information or make it a future point to investigate how to
Right, I mean,
negotiate more shared use parking?
I think that would be a good action recommendation that, you know, that we, you know, try to work with people that own private parking spaces to see, you know, if your spaces are assigned to office, for example, you know, would you be willing to allow people to use it that are, you know, live downtown?
And there's
When,
been a certain amount of that that's happened just from owner to owner, right? Like
right,
Dash Davidson's building used that lot.
yeah,
that we're
he's
speaking
been
about
doing
maybe
that on
at
his
night.
own, right?
But there's this like tiny little cluster of like 12 cars or something at night. And that lot is still vastly underutilized during the day
Yeah,
and at night as well, because other property owners would probably benefit from having that as a nighttime solution.
but. Yeah, so maybe, like I say, that might be an action step. Is to kind of resolve that. Underutilized parking spaces really is what they are. Okay.
And then we
Yeah.
we have the discrepancy of public parking with varying parking fees associated with those parking spots. And again, within those slots, those spaces, there's underutilization that I see.
In what areas do you see that?
Well, for example, I think it's called Abbott Square.
Mhm.
So you've got people trying to go to the library that have to pay to park, unfortunately. And then you've got this whole, where you've got the gates, then we have this section where, I don't know what those are, that is monthly, I think, monthly. And then there's this whole space in behind that nobody uses, nobody can access. And I've been in my spot now for 6 years, and I have seen 2 cars in that spot. But there's lots of parking space.
What is that back there? Is that for the
That's-
condo?
Well, they get monthly parking as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But nobody uses that. Now, I would love to be able to park there at a reduced fee or no fee as a business owner,
Mhm.
but. And then I also go down behind the courthouse. There's a vast amount of parking down there right now. They've got, big dumpsters and stuff everywhere, but that's a really nice access point. And it also access for people that might like to enjoy walking along the river. But underutilized, and in order to do that, you've gotta have a sticker, or you gotta be a sheriff, or you only can be a certain person, and I do walk there different times depending upon the break in my day. And I don't see those sections being used. I
Mhm.
mean, those are two that.
Yeah.
Now, this is the lot
Right.
across the street from the park.
No, behind.
the courthouse. Behind.
So in behind, and this gets to that like area in behind the first too,
Yeah.
is the same situation where they're leasing, right? Like the
Yeah, they leased
spaces.
from us, right?
Is there a way to have it, and it might already be such that it's only leased during certain hours? So, for example, the courthouse is leased like 8 to 5 or 6 or something like that. And then that way, if somebody needs to park at night, they can use it. So it doesn't end up being just empty space at night.
Do you remember, Brigada, did we do a time limit on that for the first? I just don't remember.
Because that was the most recent one.
But that's a good idea.
But I know that we wanna go back and ask if they need all those spaces. That's what
Exactly.
I'm in the process of doing, because, but that's the thing, I don't have history on, when they come in, do they just say, we just want to lease that whole parking lot?
Mhm.
My thing is move towards, a solution where they have kind of a finite amount of spaces that they need and release the other spaces.
Mhm.
And even give themselves a little buffer, but
Yeah.
Cause they park pretty randomly, those sheriff's cars, when they come in, and there are designated people for the heads of departments and who needs a place that's near their entrance, but it's pretty random back in.
Yeah,
And that would resolve a lot of the residential parking along Harlow Street that now parks on the street, taking away from. I mean, there are residents and then businesses that are downtown that park all on that, I'm not Harlow, but on that Franklin Street. And if that was available for workers in those restaurants
mhm,
that could park there, allowing customers to be able to access
right.
those spaces.
So when somebody gets a permit from you for parking, is it time specific or is it that they just have that space?
No, all the permit lots downtown are only 8 to 5. After 5, anybody can park there.
So even like the first,
No, if it's a lease parking, that we don't handle those.
Okay, all right.
That's.
Yeah, that's least with the city doing
Same
it.
thing.
Can I ask a question, just point of curiosity, so you say you have trouble finding parking, do you have trouble finding parking at the parking garage?
I don't have trouble finding parking at the parking garage unless it is a Friday night and there's a concert in town and I have to fight with everyone that's paying to park in the deck to find my parking space. I will say that parking garage, love-hate relationship, because it is difficult to squeeze 2 dark cars down that parking garage. People whip around the corner and my car's definitely gotten in there. And nobody could do anything about that, so it is what it is. Yeah, so the parking garage is an option for like, I think that's where I have to park, because my building doesn't have enough spots. It's not like a great solution, like every day to have to park there, but it does work. Usually, unless it's a busy like Friday or Saturday in the summer, then it doesn't.
So, a lot of information, is that enough for you to go off on? I know that there's probably some follow-up that we're gonna have to do with the sheriff's department.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna bring Sewell into a meeting also so they can present. They weren't able to be at this particular meeting, so I was hoping to do just this, get this out, get some beginning thoughts, like, you know, just basic premise questions like these, which
Yeah.
are helpful, so,
I-
yeah.
No, I'll let you go in a second. I was just gonna say to, Betsy, if the Downtown Bangor Partnership has any like general information that they would like to bring to the parking committee as well, I personally would love to hear that information.
You probably saw my parking PowerPoint, right?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I'm, yeah.
but if
I'd be
there,
happy to like share, like, so we have a position as an organization on the way that we would like to see parking develop.
Yeah,
That I'm happy to bring to a future meeting if people
I would
wanna
love
see it.
that. We'll put you on the agenda.
Alright,
okay.
I didn't wanna like start there at the first one that's happened in a while, like I figured we did.
Oh, no, I'll drag you in, don't worry.
Yeah.
Anne?
No, I was, sort of dovetailing on what you were saying, but looking to the future, because I know you have this whole study with roundabouts and parking solutions. So is this document and where we are right now an intermediary solution until the roundies or those round?
No, we're not doing roundabouts,
We're
that
not
one,
doing
that got,
roundabouts
yeah.
or changing patterns. So
right, but there
Is that all
will
gone,
be, well,
those proposals?
I mean, I
There were
think
some good
this,
ones.
this kind of, right, this kind of influenced their work with making those decisions about getting rid of the angled parking and to try to create more bike lanes and they're getting rid of some of the one ways, so. So that's why I want to bring them to a meeting so that we can have that conversation of how this will influence, this work influences their work with that, yeah.
And I will say wrapped into our report is kind of a request for a 5-year plan that meets downtown as it needs as it is today. And then a 10-year plan that looks to a future where all the buildings are at full occupancy and potentially, hopefully, some infill has happened as well, because like that's kind of a goal for us too, is to see some infill. And infill is easier to accomplish when there's a parking solution already associated. And it will also cause property owners to be willing to give up their surface lots if there's adequate shared parking solutions, so that we can get some more infill in parking lots.
Yeah, the one thing they did do, and this is something I definitely want them to present, was they did scenarios of increase in certain land uses, like what does that do? Our planning office worked with them on, trying to create those scenarios for square footage and, yeah, to see where those deficits happen.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this item? And so just because this was purely informational, that there's no real action needed on this right now, but we will absolutely get back to this. And Betsy, the only thing I would ask is if you could actually send that study to Anne, just to be shared with the rest of the committee. Just so that we have enough time to read it and potentially talk about a future meeting, that'd be amazing. Thank you. Okay, unless there's any other comments or questions, the next line item is going to be the Penobscot Theater request, which is the theater's seeking one accessible parking space directly in front of its establishment to comply with its ADA needs. I'll let Anne take it away.
Yeah, the theater, I lost my agenda on my thing, but the Penobscot Theater has asked for another accessible space in front of in front of their doors. What they're finding is there's a lot of people that use that space, and as you know, it's sitting on a hill. It can be very difficult for people who have accessibility needs to be able to get into the theater. So they have asked for another space. We kind of held them at bay for a long time because we were waiting for the committee to reconvene, because they asked about this a long time ago, so. Yeah.
But my only annotations on this is my only issues would be like a disruption to a flow of traffic or disruption of loading zones. But other than that, this has been something they've been requesting for a while, and there are a number of people with ADA needs that do go to the theater, and I would be leaning toward being in favor of this, but obviously, I'd like to hear what the rest of the committee has to say. Anne, did you have something or?
Yeah. Clearly, people need to have access to the theater. We have to support the arts, absolutely. But what does that space do then if it's just dedicated to handicapped parking? I don't know what the flow is on that part of downtown. And so then do we lose, when the theater is not happening, a space that could also be utilized? Because that is up on a hill. It's a long way away if somebody wants to go all the way down to the bagel shop or somewhere else. So, are there alternatives where just when there's theater, this can become, I have no idea, a little marquee that we say this is handicap only.
Are they talking about right in front of it? Or because I don't, would that interfere with traffic? I mean, I don't, you have to talk with, you might have to talk with the fire department and the bus, because it seems like they might, that seems really narrow, because it's bumped out. In front of the Prospect Theater, it bumps out. right there.
I think they're thinking one of
Just one of
these,
these.
yeah.
So converting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there an opportunity to convert a space that is currently a ADA space nearby into a regular space? So you're just trading out the location of a spot? And or I also think with that spot being on a bit of a hill, is the better solution to put it on the corner of Cross and Main where it's flat, where you'd be parking flat and be able to, and you'd be close to the theater. Like I don't know like how easy it is to get in and out of your vehicle in an ADA spot on a hill. So I wasn't sure if like having like it just, a few yards away around the corner on Cross Street would be more accessible than having it on the hill.
Middle Street.
Middle, yes, thank you. I keep saying, sorry. not
It's all hill.
I know.
It's all hill. I mean.
I know,
that's the
cause
issue
even
there,
middle's
is
a hill,
But,
right?
yeah, so.
Yeah,
But they specifically asked for that spot?
Yeah,
Were folks asking for that spot? Cause I would imagine that they would know how difficult it would be if they.
yeah, I mean, they were specific about that spot, so. Yeah.
Just for general, for enforcement purposes, how the state statute, city ordinance is that the handicap space is double whatever the existing space, so it's not just, and that's only from 8 to 5, so if a space is 90 minutes, the person with the ADA certificate gets that's.
So from what I'm hearing is, it sounds like we're gonna have to do a little bit of homework on this is actually feasible or not, just due to the statutes.
And we can ask them to come to your next meeting.
That was gonna be my next recommendation, yes. Does anyone have anything on this topic they'd like to add further?
If it's all right,
Yes.
I just want to quickly add, I did, not that anyone needs to know this, I spent several years using a cane, and I can tell you parking half a block away up the hill is not convenient and oftentimes really challenging to feel like you are a valid person when you're being sent around the corner, so you're not taking up too much space. So I'll just throw that out there. We do also have the oldest population in the state or in the country, so we're going to see maybe a higher need of that kind of parking as well. So just throwing those two things out there.
Valid points.
Okay, we'll bring that to your next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. We definitely need to discuss this more. Okay. So Main Street parking loading zone amendment. And I'll just let you take
Yeah,
the
let
lead on
me-
this. It's
I'm gonna pull this one up too and share. Good. This is another one that was been out there for a long time. There were a lot of concerns of, let's. Okay. So, just to orient you, here's, the theater, Union and Main. The people that own this building here on the corner had asked for, 15-minute parking spaces in front of, the establishment next door to them. And the reason for that is there's a lot of in and out. They said that there's a lot of in and out traffic for the restaurant that's here. And it's causing these spaces to be used sort of as a loading, that quick in and out, which has affected the traffic in the area. So they've asked for a 15-minute parking space at this location. The people that own this building have expressed concerns about that. They feel that it's not necessary, that people can, sometimes they pull in here, which again, the people that own this building, they own this property in here, so, DoorDash and other food delivery folks, pulling in there has been an issue for them as well. So we had indicated at the time that we were gonna wait to do this parking analysis. So again, I don't expect a recommendation at this point, because you're still kind of looking at the overall parking issues, but I wanted to just bring this back because they still feel that this is an issue for them.
So are they
Oh, yeah,
concerned
yeah.
because the DoorDash people are going into that little empty square?
Yeah, they're going into their
get the
parking
pickup.
area to pick up food here and
Take,
yeah.
If people were if that lot were full, I could understand that could be an issue, but given that there's pretty much never anybody in that lot, it doesn't seem like an issue, and there's such a dearth of parking right at that place that removing.
Oh, and there's parking over here too.
Right,
Yeah.
but it just feels like removing a street spot is the wrong move for that location.
I agree.
And I think I'm a bit confused too, because isn't that building for sale or for rent now? So I know the tavern's in the space that's upset and they're
Oh, in
like,
here?
yeah, in there. So
There's the 158 spot is currently for rent.
okay,
Oh, up
cause
there.
like the next one is the next one over? Is 124 the Thai place?
128
Or
is the tie.
128, okay, yeah.
128
Yeah,
is
yeah, so
Thai.
that building, I'm just a little bit confused, because I feel like there's not a ton happening in the base level of that building right now.
Now somebody just moved out, so it's vacant.
Right,
So that's why I'm a little like.
yeah, I mean, this parking lot isn't as full as it used to be,
That's,
Yeah, Silver.
yeah.
Yeah.
They've just moved out of
And
it.
is that Cool Girl lot, is that a public or private?
These are private lots, both of these. This is, this lot area is not the city and neither is that. Yeah, those are private lots.
So there was a counter proposal that staff recommended, which was converting one space to a 15-minute loading. How does the committee feel about that counter proposal? Is that still going too far? Is that acceptable? What does the committee think?
It feels unnecessary.
Don't think to make it a 15.
Yeah, but there's adequate
Yeah.
private spaces, yeah, okay.
Which is-
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's pretty overwhelming, so. Okay, unless anyone has any other questions to have, I think that brings us to not the end of the meeting, but other business items. So one of the things that before we get to saying the next date and the next agenda, before the meeting started, this is one of the rare committees where you have a council chair overseeing the committee. this is just my personal belief. I would much rather have citizens take the lead and initiative on this committee while there being a council liaison. We don't need to discuss this today. We can discuss this at a future meeting, but that is how I think this committee should go forward in the future. For right now, we have a lot of things we have to do. I'm completely fine keeping things as is right now. But if this is an item that we do want to discuss at a future meeting, happy to do that. But that's the only other business that I want to bring up besides saying the next meeting date. Did anyone have any other business that they'd like to present? No?
All right.
Okay, so I think right now we're according to I think our code that we have to meet four times a year.
Minimum, yeah.
Minimum, yeah. So I guess one of the things I want to make sure is we have a date that is at the very least good for the majority of the committee. Are there dates coming up that are easier for us to work with? Do we want to have a monkey survey monkey
Yeah.
schedule to go out?
Do it, yeah.
Okay.
Doodle, whatever, yeah. To send something out.
Okay. Any other items? If no other items, I'll take a motion to vacate the meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Well, without a doubt, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate the comment.